All right. So this is a test run-through of this slideshow presentation. This is a video about gameplay that we cannot acquire. We cannot... This video is about gameplay we simply can't find these days. It's just not available to us without going to really old games, right? So the games that are being made today simply no longer incorporate this type of gameplay. They no longer serve this demographic, the demographic that prefers this gameplay. And this video is identifying that gameplay and examining possible alternatives to finding that gameplay, perhaps. All right. So my claims. So number one, low actions per minute, right? In StarCraft, you play it, 300 actions per minute, or 100 actions per minute, or 20 in my case, actions per minute, right? I'm just kidding. I'm 40 actions per minute. Low actions per minute gameplay, you can't find that in modern games without playing old school games like Project 1999, which is a resurrection of EverQuest. The vanilla servers of EverQuest. Sorry, I keep looking out the window. It's bright. It's outside. Okay, so that's claim number one. Claim number two is that high time to kill first-person shooter gameplay is also unavailable in the modern era without going back to old games. High time to kill. Now remember, high time to kill is a measure of the average time it takes to kill, from the time you begin shooting with your reticle on the target to the time they die, right? And obviously sniper rifles are always going to be instant kill, almost always. Rocket launchers are always instant kill. If you sit there with a pistol, it could take you like a full minute to kill them, right? But we're talking about the average. In the end, the average of all the different types of killing, but the average of all the different types of gameplay, right? So we're incorporating the story, right? As you go through the story, what is the primary gameplay? 80% of your game time is spent shooting at elites, shooting at other players, right? So it's a measure. Okay, so let's see. All right, now let's clarify and give qualifications for my claims here because they're a little more specific than... That's a pretty broad claim, right? Okay. So number one, I want that low actions per minute gameplay in modern MMOs, okay? Not ancient MMOs. I can go back and I can play EverQuest 1999, Project 1999, or I can play classic WoW, right? Which is old school and cool and awesome. But the newer games are simply not made in the service of our demographic. Okay. And I wanted to clarify about that in modern MMOs qualification there. I mean, there's plenty like Dragon Age, like the newest Dragon Age, right? Maybe it'll have quite a low actions per minute requirement, right? That's a single player RPG. That's not what I'm talking about, right? Obviously, you have turn-based RPGs being released in the modern era. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about MMOs. Okay. And the second qualification here is that I'm talking about in standard gameplay. This is tricky because, in AAA games, one of the main things that they do these days is they make the game cater to broad swaths of demographics, right? The action gamer crowd, the RPG gamer crowd, the crafters, the builders, the real money traders, right? a lot of different demographics are being served by a single game. But what I mean, again, is that standard gameplay, the way everyone normally plays, the way the average person plays. The majority of us. The majority of us, classic WoW, we quest to level up our dudes. We run some 5-man dungeons every once in a while, right? Most of us are not buying power levels. Not anymore. Or not in the past. I mean, nowadays it's changed, but... Okay, so leveling, right? Most of us level in, say, World of Warcraft, right? And we do dungeons every once in a while, okay? So that's one specification, one clarification. Maybe it's a qualification. And I wanted to also specify that I don't mean deliberately seeking out and creating it, okay? So I began disliking World of Warcraft, although I didn't know it at the time, in Burning Crusade. Right? It was moving toward a more action-oriented approach. I didn't recognize that until Wrath of the Lich King. And I was like, oh, this is like an action game. I don't like getting on and playing an action game all day. I want to play an RPG. So what I started to do was to seek out low actions per minute gameplay. Gameplay where I could gather up a ton of monsters, use a couple of key abilities, kill them all. That's a really bad example. So there's multiple ways in which you can affect your own gameplay in any given RPG, any given MMO, right? So the leash distance in World of Warcraft is such that you can go gather up 5 mobs at one time. And if your class is appropriate, and if you can line of sight certain casters and things like that, interrupt them at a crucial time, make them run to you. The point is you can create your own type of gameplay where you play the way you want to play. I don't mean that. I mean the standard majority activity. Okay. And I also don't mean not seeking it out, right? There are elites in World of Warcraft where you can go where they take a long time to kill, right? And you just don't have it's classic, so you don't really have to push that many actions per minute. You use your shield, you stun them, and then you use a heal, and then you use another heal, right? It's pretty low actions per minute gameplay, but they take a long time to kill. So you're seeking out that gameplay in specifics. But I want to talk about what I mean is that there's like 40 enemies between each elite. You got to kill 40 enemies at a real fast kill, real fast kill, real fast, right? Like that, before you get to that gameplay that you want to get. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the core. There's a better word for this. The meat and potatoes gameplay. Okay. It's in MMOs. Low actions per minute gameplay in MMOs. Oh, yeah, I just wanted to point out that, there's turn-based MMOs, right? What I'm specifically talking about is an action RPG, right? In the same way that Secret of Mana is an action RPG. Yeah, you move live. It's live. It's real time, right? But the enemies move slow, and they attack slow, and they telegraph their attacks. And you have long cooldowns on your abilities, and you're going to hit them a couple of times before you get. So there's not like that, like EverQuest. There's not any urgency to your actions. You're just maybe a little bit of timing here and there. Better do that now, right? There's not like this action, this rush, right? Low actions per minute requirement. Yes, there's turn-based. That's a different situation. Okay, the other thing is high time to kill first-person shooters, and I mean in traditional first-person shooter games. I don't mean in like Destiny and Borderlands. Those are hybrids that are on a totally different scale that I'm not even talking about. They've made a really interesting variation on the time to kill gameplay, on the time to kill aspect of first-person shooters. It's totally interesting. It's great. I'm glad it's there. It's an area. It's a niche that needs to be filled and serviced. But that's not what I'm talking about. I mean in traditional gameplay, Call of Duty, for Halo, Unreal Tournament, Quake, whatever, right? Those sorts of gameplays. Those sorts of games. All right. So here we have it. Here we have a little, a bunch of spectrums I've laid out, right? You've got a table here. We've got from low actions per minute up top, high actions per minute down below. We've got low time to kill over to the left and high time to kill over to the right. So let's start with games that exist. I'm trying to point at my screen. I don't even think I have a cursor here. All right, on the upper right-hand corner, we have Final Fantasy. Not Final Fantasy 2, not Final Fantasy 7, not Final Fantasy 14. Final Fantasy, the first one, Nintendo Entertainment System. Very low actions per minute. It's literally turn-based, right? So technically shouldn't even be on this graph. It should be up at top on the graph, but whatever. Final Fantasy, very low actions per minute and quite high time to kill. Even if you kill an enemy in one hit, there's 3 other enemies. Half your guys at any one round will miss. And that's assuming you don't have to heal. That's assuming you don't have to heal. A lot of healing. A lot of using... Gosh, how did you do that game? Anyway, Final Fantasy, right? It's got a high time to kill. Okay, so how about EverQuest? There's EverQuest right down there below Final Fantasy. It's very high time to kill. In fact, I probably should have bumped that up to the right significantly more, because the enemies in EverQuest actually take significantly longer than the enemies in Final Fantasy to kill. You can be facing an enemy in, well, okay, but it's different eras, right? It's different eras. So how do you compare that directly? It's not really directly comparable. Moving on. EverQuest, very high time to kill, very low actions per minute required, right? I've heard someone critique the game in the sense of, I don't want to spend 3.5 minutes whittling down an enemy's hit points and using a cooldown kick every 15 seconds. Well, guess what? I do. I play RPGs. That's why I like to play RPGs. It's not my skills that matter. It's not my reaction speed, my attention, my focus, my reaction speed that matters. It's the characters. And I simply pilot him. I direct him as he goes. Okay, and again, I'm pointing. Down here on the bottom right-hand corner in the middle there, we have Halo, Combat Evolved, right? I've placed that at the very high time to kill, and I want to point something out there. That's high time to kill for first-person shooter games. I keep looking over to the right. I don't know why. That's my left. High time to kill for first-person shooter games, right? Quake would be all the way over to the left. Very low time to kill. Unreal Tournament, very low time to kill. Call of Duty, very low time to kill. Halo, much higher. But you can see, and of course it's got the APM on the first-person shooters is not something I particularly care about. No, it is. In Halo Combat Evolved, it's more about precision than it is about reaction, kind of. I don't know. I guess I'm not that interested in actions per minute on the first-person shooters, or maybe first-person shooters are kind of, fairly close to a continuum on the actions per minute spectrum. But anyway, there's Halo down there. I want to point out there's Destiny. The bottom right-hand corner, in case you don't know what that logo is, the black and white logo down there is Destiny. That's way off the scale. Way off the scale in the time to kill, right? It's ridiculous. You can face a boss for like 7 minutes or something. It's crazy. But while you're doing so, you're doing 20 different things at one time. You're dodging past stuff, you're destroying things, you're killing little dudes, you're charging up stuff, you're activating abilities and shooting. Like, it's constant high levels of action. Whereas Halo is above that, much lower action. It's a first-person shooter. There's a certain level of action you're going to expect. It's a first-person shooter. That's the point, right? Huh. That'd be interesting to see a game that's a first-person shooter that has a low actions per minute. That would be kind of interesting. Put that in the questions. I'd like to hear some examples of those. But anyway, there's Halo, first-person shooter, with high time to kill. Whereas Call of Duty, I haven't put it on the scale. Problem there. Should be way over there on the left. Way on the left. Very low time to kill. And as a matter of fact, in Call of Duty, essentially, there's a lot of Call of Duties. All the ones I've played. When you start shooting accurately, they die. That's the game. Again, this is leveled at the game at Call of Duty as a critique, but it's not a critique. It doesn't make sense as a critique. That's like critiquing someone's choice of red for their car. That's a subjective preference. You can't critique someone's subjective preference except from your own perspective. That makes no sense. So Call of Duty will be over there on the left. Very low time to kill. The whole point is that you get a bead on the enemy first. You hit them first, you win first. That's just how it goes. That's the game. The game is, again, map knowledge, other stuff. Okay, well, I'll have to edit that part out. All right, so we've finished up with the Call of Duty to Halo comparison. We're talking about Final Fantasy, EverQuest, Halo, the old games that we are trying to find the gameplay of in the modern era. Okay, how about let's go to the mid-range area. Let's go to World of Warcraft right there. As you can see, World of Warcraft in the bottom left-hand corner there is quite high on the actions per minute scale. If you play even Classic is significantly higher actions per minute requirement than, say, original EverQuest, right? Again, remember EverQuest, the critique was one kick every 15 seconds, right? 15-second cooldown on backstab or kick or whatever the heck it is, right? Whereas World of Warcraft, like, A 5-second cooldown? Okay, no, everything is like a 30-second cooldown, but there's like 17 different things to use constantly, right? What they do that, and it's fun, it's great, it's awesome. A lot of actions per minute. Now, retail World of Warcraft would, of course, be far higher on that scale. It'd be way, way higher on the actions per minute scale. You got to play fast. Okay, so let's take a brief moment here in between looking at the old school games that we were trying to find the gameplay of in the modern era, and instead review the labels I have here real fast. I just want to point out that low actions per minute, you don't have to do much, and high duration of a fight is an RPG. That's what an RPG, that's what we mean by an RPG. Okay, but, really fast fights and really high actions per minute, that's action. That's Mega Man, right? Yeah, you got to shoot an enemy 4 times, but you shoot the bullets 4 times in a single second, right? And it's done. The enemy dies in 1 second. And, it dies in 1 second. You push the button 4 times really fast. Okay, whereas if you've got a very high time to kill, the enemy lasts a long time, but you're pushing the buttons really, really fast, what you've got is essentially bullet hell. That was the only. These are just examples of what I can think of. I couldn't really come up with really good labels on the spot, except for action and RPG. Those are pretty solid. Bullet hell is just an example of something that takes a long time to kill, but requires a lot of button presses to do it. There might be some other genre I'm not aware of or couldn't think of at the time, but a bullet hell matches that description. A lot of buttons, real fast for a long time, right? And then I actually had a lot of trouble thinking of very little input from the user, but also really fast death. I thought clicker games, right? But that's really fast clicking. So it's... There you go. What do you mean by clicking? Do you mean like things that you actually have to think about, or just you just click for a whole bunch and then look away, watch your Netflix, right? Maybe that would qualify. Maybe clicker games would qualify. Yeah, and low times to kill. So I just threw a mobile game on here. I tried the Final Fantasy mobile game just in the hopes that it was something playable, but they put a lot of heart into it. I'm going to give Final Fantasy Brave Exvius actually a pretty high marks on... I mean, it's Final Fantasy. It's pretty fucking awesome, but nothing stuck with me. For one, you're mixing all the characters from all the Final Fantasies. That's just instantly breaking all of the immersion in all the worlds, and that kind of seems like a stupid idea from the design perspective, but that's my preference, right? So I just put baby games up there. Baby games meaning you don't have to do much, but a lot is happening. That's just kind of what I figured what it was. I'd be interested in more examples of what could fit up there. Okay, so now let's move on to... Those are the topics. Those are the graph divisions. So let's move on to the potential candidates for fulfilling this old school gameplay outlined in Final Fantasy and EverQuest and Halo and World of Warcraft, but in the modern era. Let's start with EverQuest 2, right? The sequel to EverQuest. Did it retain the same formula? No, not even fucking close. Enemies die fast. Now, real quick. I didn't play on release. I played several years after release. It's entirely possible they've dumbed the game down. Secondly, I only played up to like level 10 or 15 or something, right? I played to like the beginning zone and then like one more zone after that. Everything died fast. Really fast. A few seconds at most. EverQuest, you're talking fucking a few minutes. Okay? EverQuest 2, a few seconds. Something's wrong. Now again, this is without seeking out that specific gameplay, right? I've watched a video of was it Cypher Deck or AC Gamer? I don't know, some YouTuber playing EverQuest 2, and they were trying out some new content in the newest expansion, and they killed an enemy that I don't even exaggerate. It took like 17 minutes or something, he said. And I believe him, right? His regeneration was high enough that his DPS could actually wear the guy down in less than a day. Right. And he was actually able to kill this guy. But A, he's not supposed to be killing that guy. B, that's a weird situation on the border between two power levels, power tiers, right? That kind of occasionally It does occasionally happen, but that's an exception. General gameplay, you're slaughtering minions left and right. It just doesn't happen. Actions per minute, significantly higher. The whole point of EverQuest was, let's add a bunch of other buttons for you to push in the middle of all your other shit cooling down. It's World of Warcraft. Right? They just flat out copied World of Warcraft. They're pretty much in the same place on the graph right there. All right. Gosh, that's the only potential I have. Interesting. Okay, let's skip straight to the ones that I think fulfill that potential. They find that potential. They actuate that potential, right? They actually bring the old school gameplay into the modern era. Number one, Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, right? It is copying EverQuest. Super Brits and Bob and I had a bit of a discussion. Super Brits and Bob and myself had a bit of a discussion in the comments. We had a disagreement about whether Pantheon Rise of the Fallen was following in the footsteps of EverQuest's combat formula. Now, obviously, the difference hinges on what we mean by combat formula. And in this case, we meant different things. He meant the tactical aspects. I specifically meant he meant like the rock, paper, scissors aspect. If you don't bring this element to the party, you're going to be wiped out, right? Multiple different people interacting in multiple ways. You've got paper and scissor covered, so only rock beats you or something like that, right? I actually meant regarding the time to kill and the difficulty. Pantheon clears the bar on both those aspects so far. Right, we have yet to see whether they will take the knee to the moneyed crowds, right? The moneyed masses. I suspect they will, but whatever. So currently, what you see in Pantheon is a fairly low APM. Now, I haven't actually watched them pushing the bars, but it seems like each class really only has like 4 or 5 abilities. It seems like half a World of Warcraft rotation. That's what it seems like to me, okay? I'm familiar with World of Warcraft rotations, so I can just use that as a point of reference. If you can't, I don't know what to tell you. But it seems like there's 2 or 3 buttons to push every couple of seconds. It's not EverQuest. It's nowhere near it's not EverQuest 2. It's nowhere near EverQuest 2 in terms of actions per minute requirement, where you're constantly pushing something, saving up a charge and blowing it, saving up a charge and blowing it, using a special. It's not like that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. Oh, now we're doing that, right? Nice low actions per minute. Nowhere near the turn-based, but much closer to EverQuest. The time to kill is far closer to EverQuest. In fact, it's basically identical to EverQuest from what I'm seeing. The single player, the soloing took quite a while to kill enemies. And the party-based, it sped it up. It definitely did. But it still took a significant amount of time. Now, this differs between videos, and that's a perfectly valid concern, absolutely 100% valid. If they begin dragging that down to please the moneyed masses, then the degree to which they do that is the degree to which I tune out, right? That's not what I'm interested in. I want an RPG, right? Not an action game, not a baby game, right? Okay, so Pantheon Rise of the Fallen hopefully is bringing the gameplay of EverQuest to the modern era, hopefully. Specifically in terms of time to kill and low actions per minute. Okay, let's talk about Angels Fall First. Angels Fall First is a first-person shooter game on Steam. It's been in development for a long, long time. It's still in early access. If any of that worries you, check out of the conversation. You're done. It's over. But that said, it's a perfectly functioning game. It functions better than some completely released games in terms of crashes and things like that. Let's move the mouse a little bit, make sure I don't time out. It is a first-person shooter that brings back the time to kill time frame of Halo Combat Evolved. You get your cursor on a person, you start shooting with appropriate accuracy, right? A couple of misses here and there, and your opponent's going to go down in a time frame that has something to do with Halo Combat Evolved. Okay, not Call of Duty. It's not the second bullet that kills them or the third bullet that kills them in an automatic rifle. That's not how that works. You have to keep your bead on them. They have a moment to, I'm being shot. flip around, get behind cover, duck, roll, whatever it is. You can't even roll in the game, but whatever it is, right? Pop a shield thing or something like that, right? Okay, so it is a high time to kill, again, in the context of first-person shooters, not Destiny. It's a high time to kill, and it's not quite Destiny, where there's always something to be doing and aiming at, always, and the difference in your skill is how quickly you can aim and do these things. It's not quite like that. It's like, I'm trucking across the country. Oh, there goes a tank. I better stay and hide from that. Okay, I'm going to join my squad over there, right? It's that. It's not Halo 4, Halo 5, Destiny. Jump, shoot, slide, grenade, melee, jump, bounce, wall climb, shoot, snipe. It's not that, right? There's intermissions. There's gameplay. I'm just kidding. Okay, so that's a first-person shooter that is hopefully...
We're gonna go to the fairgrounds.
Okay. So that's that. There is a first-person shooter gameplay that is hopefully bringing back the old-school first-person shooter gameplay of a high time-to-kill first-person shooter. And then we have Elite Dangerous, which is another potential candidate for bringing back the old-school gameplay into the modern era. This is Elite Dangerous, the Odyssey expansion. It's not out yet. We've only have a couple of videos on it, so everything I say is prefaced on the condition that, on the qualification that we've only seen a few gameplay videos of it. Who knows whether they've accurately, described the gameplay in the videos they've shown. But for what I've seen so far, you can empty an entire clip at someone and then need to empty a second clip. Okay? Holy shit. The game I forgot to put on this table here is Dust 514. It's one of the main things. One of the main old-school first-person shooters I want to bring back into existence. The gameplay of it, at least. I made posts about this on Reddit, right? It's crazy. This gameplay is lost. You can empty an entire clip at someone, and their armor matters. Their speed matters. Their stealth matters. Their recovery matters. Their tactics matter. Their cooldowns matter, right? It's not Call of Duty where you get a bead, you're done, it's over, assuming you have appropriate skill with aim and follow through and whatnot. Know how to use your weapon, things like that. So far, Elite Dangerous seems to be on that path. It seems to be bringing that gameplay back, potentially. Whether they do that through having shields or having stronger armor, it doesn't really matter. Remember, what we're talking about is the majority of the gameplay. You're always going to be able to get into that situation where you can find a vantage point, snipe a few people off, and get instant kills on them. We're not talking about that. That does factor into the equation. So if 90% of the time you're getting sniper kills, one-shot kills, then yeah, most of your gameplay is very low actions per minute. Very low time to kill, right? Very low time to kill, and it wouldn't match where I've put it on this scale.